Lee Yumi lives by the belief that she can achieve anything she sets her mind to. Although she is just a daughter of a country suit shop owner, she has been able to pursue hobbies typical of wealthy young ladies. This began when she met a foreign military couple who visited the shop to have clothes made. The officer's wife was impressed by Lee Yumi's intelligence and wit, and often invited her over, teaching her aristocratic interests. This fortunate encounter seemed to change Lee Yumi's life. But gifts from fate often come with a hidden cost. The officer's wife, a vain woman, felt lonely in the secluded Korean countryside and started lying about being a noble and a relative of Princess Diana to gain attention. She passed on her skill at lying to Lee Yumi, using playing cards to teach her the importance of keeping a poker face and not revealing her true feelings. Eventually, the couple left, reminding Lee Yumi to maintain her poker face. Lee Yumi took this advice to heart and used her intelligence and composure to make others believe her own vain lies. Her calm life was disrupted when she fell in love in high school. Just months before the college entrance exam, the school found out about her relationship with her music teacher, a serious violation of school rules. To save his job, the teacher blamed Lee Yumi, marking the first time she was hurt by someone else's lies. He was suspended, and the exemplary student Lee Yumi had to transfer schools urgently, leaving her village for a school in Seoul. Due to the urgency of the transfer, the new school was reluctant to accept her, but did so due to her excellent academic record, with one condition: she must focus solely on her studies. Her father rented a room for her, provided living expenses, and left Seoul. Away from her familiar surroundings, Lee Yumi lost her way of life, could no longer rely on lies for vanity, and her grades plummeted. She failed to get into university. After the exam results were announced, Lee Yumi sunk into despair. Her father called, mentioning her mother's Alzheimer's diagnosis, and cautiously inquired about her exam results. Unable to confess her failure, she lied about getting into university, accepted her parents' celebrations and gifts, and then spent a lot of money on a cram school to prepare for a retest. During her repeat year, she shared a rental with a real university student, Ji-won, who, believing they attended the same university, eagerly befriended her. Ji-won and Lee Yumi exchanged phone numbers. Ji-won also invited Lee Yumi to join the school's editorial team. However, Lee Yumi, knowing she wasn't really a university student, made an excuse about having no interest and declined Ji-won's offer. Ji-won didn't suspect anything, simply thinking Lee Yumi was a shy girl. Lee Yumi admired the vibrant university campus and longed to be a part of it. One day after her preparatory class, Ji-won invited her to have pizza at the editorial office. Being back in a student atmosphere, Lee Yumi couldn't resist lying again. When asked about her hometown, she claimed to have lived in the US during her childhood, which made her classmates envious. Compliments like these made Lee Yumi happy, though no one suspected that this shy girl was actually a master of lying. Ji-won found Lee Yumi very cute. When leaving, Ji-won gave Lee Yumi a t-shirt exclusive to the editorial department. After her preparatory year ended, Lee Yumi took the university entrance exam again. When she finished, she regretted her performance, fearing she wouldn't be admitted to university again. Walking home, Ji-won called and invited Lee Yumi to the editorial department's general meeting. At the lively dinner, the beautiful Lee Yumi caught the attention of many male university students. That night, she met Kang Jae-ho and quickly started a relationship with him. A few days later, a teacher from the prep school advised Lee Yumi not to aim for the hard-to-enter medical school, warning her of another potential rejection. However, Lee Yumi preferred to retake the year rather than attend a third-rate university. After dating Kang Jae-ho for a while, he told her about his opportunity to study in New York and didn't want to leave without her. He proposed they go together and marry after graduation. Kang Jae-ho had already mentioned Lee Yumi to his mother, and his family was eager to meet her. Lee Yumi was excited about finally going to the US. However, studying abroad required a lot of money. Lee Yumi returned home to ask her father for financial help. Her father managed to gather the money for her studies. Just before boarding the plane, Kang Jae-ho received a call from his mother, who had found out all of Lee Yumi's information was fake and demanded Kang Jae-ho stay away from the deceiver. After the flight took off, Lee Yumi, left alone, returned to her run-down rental home and rested for a week. One morning, she received a call from a neighbor in her hometown. Her father had passed away from cancer, a fact he had wanted to reveal before Lee Yumi left for the US, but kept hidden to not hinder her future. Full of regret for missing the chance to see her father one last time because of a lie, Lee Yumi returned to her village and wept in front of his memorial. After her father's death, she began to sell his suit shop. While reviewing the accounts, she found that her parents had always been frugal, with all their major expenses spent on her, which deepened her sorrow. Back in Seoul, without a degree, Lee Yumi struggled to make ends meet through odd jobs. Years later, she saw an online job posting that did not require a degree and went to the address. It was a family-run art gallery owned by Lee, a writer. Lee Yumi's job is to take care of the writer Lee's daughter, Lee Hyun-ju. The writer Lee has no other demands for Lee Yumi. He just expects her to work honestly. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lee is a devout believer who often holds prayer meetings at home with her sisters. Lee Hyun-ju recently returned from the US, and her lively and willful personality clashes with her conservative family environment. One day, as Lee Hyun-ju and Mrs. Lee were about to receive guests, Mrs. Lee thought Lee Hyun-ju's outfit was too revealing. She instructed Lee Yumi to fetch several more appropriate outfits. It was Lee Yumi's first time entering Lee Hyun-ju's room. She was surprised by the large floor-to-ceiling windows and envied the numerous outfits in the walk-in closet. Lee Yumi had never experienced such a lifestyle. She noticed a pair of beautiful high heels on the floor and tried them on. They fit perfectly and suited her slender legs elegantly. However, none of this belonged to her. Lee Hyun-ju's reality was just like the life Lee Yumi had fabricated in her lies. Lee Yumi could only envy Lee Hyun-ju's wonderful life. Although Lee Hyun-ju occasionally gave Lee Yumi items, like unwanted watches, it was not out of care or friendship, but as charity to someone she saw as beneath her. The writer Lee also looked down on the servants. When Lee Yumi asked for leave, she found him very angry. He hated when employees took leave and viewed the servants as stupid and lazy, doomed to live at the bottom of society forever. His words deeply hurt Lee Yumi, but she still had to muster the energy to serve Lee Hyun-ju. Lee Hyun-ju, upset over a marriage issue, was preparing to go abroad for a vacation. She vented to Lee Yumi, saying she felt very unfortunate, which pierced Lee Yumi's heart. Lee Yumi took out Lee Hyun-ju's American passport, which had her English name, Anna, and was about to expire in a month. Lee Yumi informed her of this, but Lee Hyun-ju threw the passport on the floor and ordered Lee Yumi to get it renewed. Lee Yumi picked up the passport and left coldly. She longed for a life of vanity. That night, Lee Yumi stole cash from the art gallery, took Lee Hyun-ju's American passport, and left the gallery. She decided to pursue what she wanted at all costs, as per her life philosophy. If she wanted to do something, she would achieve it. After fleeing the gallery, Lee Yumi went home to visit her mother. The next day, she woke up, turned on her phone, and saw Ji-won's name. After some thought, she called him to leverage their relationship to find a job. Ji-won, a journalist with extensive contacts, indeed introduced her to a good job as a teacher at an art tutoring class. When filling out her resume, Lee Yumi opened Lee Hyun-ju's passport, filled in her information, and used her English name, Anna. Before the interview, Lee Yumi did her hair and rented a designer suit. With Ji-won's referral and Lee Hyun-ju's educational background, Lee Yumi immediately gained the trust of the tutoring class manager. When returning the designer suit, Lee Yumi took out the watch Lee Hyun-ju had given her, planning to sell it. The clerk informed her that the brand had been exposed for selling fake goods a few years ago. Only then did Lee Yumi realize why Lee Hyun-ju had given her these items. They were unwanted junk. This humiliation made it impossible for Lee Yumi to let go. She vowed never to be looked down upon or trampled upon. To stabilize her new job, Lee Yumi changed her name to Lee Anna. She often visited various study abroad agencies, posing as a consultant to learn the advisor's pitches and relay them to her students. This made her appear very professional. Lee Yumi's intelligence and natural acting skills deceived everyone she met. One night, a neighbor called to inform her that her father's suit shop would be requisitioned due to street development. For this, Lee Yumi received some money. She used part of it to admit her mother to a nursing home and rented an apartment in Seoul with the rest. Lee Yumi continued to buy fake designer outfits to maintain her noble status while working at the tutoring center. At the tutoring center, Lee Yumi met a teacher who had been a schoolmate of Lee Hyun-ju abroad. Although the teacher had heard of Lee Hyun-ju, she had never met her, so she did not suspect Lee Yumi's identity. Despite lacking formal qualifications, Lee Yumi was an excellent tutor. Her students successfully got into Yale, which further dispelled any doubts about her identity. 2 years later, Lee Yumi turned her fabricated life into reality through lies and acting. The next day, a teacher approached her to become a manners instructor at a prestigious educational institute. Accepting the position would perfect her resume, but it wasn't a free offer. Lee Yumi had to pay. To secure the job, Lee Yumi turned her rented apartment into a monthly rental. The teacher introduced her to the institute's board members. Lee Yumi, elegant and intellectual, passed the interview smoothly and became a respected professor. She worked hard to memorize literary texts for each class, appearing highly knowledgeable. Her attractive appearance and approachable teaching style increased her fame and student numbers. Seeing her success and single status, other professors wanted to introduce her to potential partners. One was a representative of a public company. Lee Yumi met Choi Ji-hoon, who boasted about his wealth and taste in art. However, Lee Yumi found his taste lacking, noticing the counterfeit sofa and considering him vain. She politely declined Choi Ji-hoon's proposal, citing no rush to marry. But Choi Ji-hoon didn't give up, asking Lee Yumi to meet him at least 3 times. If she didn't fall in love, he would respect her decision. Although Lee Yumi agreed, she still found Choi Ji-hoon boastful and lacking in stability and refinement, exactly as she initially thought. Ji-won told Lee Yumi that Choi Ji-hoon's net worth skyrocketed through stock speculation. Although Choi Ji-hoon is in the IT industry, he lacks an impressive educational background. He only attended a lifelong education college at a prestigious school after becoming wealthy. Upon learning about Choi Ji-hoon's past, Lee Yumi was moved. Both she and Choi Ji-hoon lacked formal education and had strived to rise from the lower class. Lee Yumi suddenly felt that Choi Ji-hoon wasn't so bad after all. They soon started dating and were discussing marriage. One day, Lee Yumi visited her mother, who communicated through sign language that she had dreamed of Lee Yumi crying as if she were going to a faraway place. Looking at her mother somberly, Lee Yumi wasn't going far, but was going to get married. Due to her fake identity, her mother couldn't attend the wedding, and her parents at the wedding were actors Lee Yumi had hired. Soon after, Choi Ji-hoon and Lee Yumi held a grand wedding ceremony, officially entering high society as a corporate representative's wife. During the photo session at the wedding, Choi Ji-hoon's father also called a young boy from a relative's family to join. The boy seemed autistic but spoke about the botanical classification of the flowers Lee Yumi held when he saw her bouquet. After the wedding, Lee Yumi became the most eye-catching adornment on Choi Ji-hoon. As an entrepreneur who made it from the bottom, marrying a wife with a prestigious school degree was a source of pride. Like most businessmen, as Choi Ji-hoon's wealth grew, he aspired for power. He took Lee Yumi to gatherings of the elite, aiming to enter politics. However, as Choi Ji-hoon met more people, more also heard about Lee Hyun-ju. Although Lee Yumi silently supported him, she hoped Choi Ji-hoon would stay away from politics. At an art scholarship award ceremony, the next speaker, a deaf-mute girl, was to present without her sign language teacher, who couldn't arrive on time. Lee Yumi volunteered to interpret for her. Seeing the girl's nervousness, Lee Yumi used sign language to reassure her, telling her only she knew what the girl was saying, and everyone else was ignorant of sign language. Lee Yumi's words made the girl laugh, and she went on to present her award speech with sign language, which Lee Yumi translated. Afterward, the girl hugged Lee Yumi tightly, and the audience and media cheered. Choi Ji-hoon was very pleased with Lee Yumi, as a successful politician needs such a charming and wise partner. That night, as Lee Yumi returned home and was in the elevator, a girl entered. It was Lee Hyun-ju. Lee Yumi became anxious and started avoiding Lee Hyun-ju's gaze, but Lee Hyun-ju still saw her face. She thought for a moment, and then asked if she was Lee Yumi, but Lee Yumi didn't dare respond. As soon as Lee Yumi got home, she crouched on the floor, breathing heavily in fear. From that day on, Lee Yumi felt uneasy, especially when she discovered that Lee Hyun-ju seemed to live in the same building as they encountered each other again in the parking lot the following night. Lee Yumi immediately contacted someone who used to work with her at Lee Hyun-ju's house to inquire about the situation. She was informed that writer Lee had passed away last year, and his company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Lee Hyun-ju had returned to Korea recently due to a divorce, and was now working in the fashion industry with a celebrity. Whether Lee Hyun-ju would return abroad was unclear. This information intensified Lee Yumi's sense of crisis. The next day, as soon as she got home, she urged Choi Ji-hoon to move because she wanted to live in a house where she could fully open the windows. However, Choi Ji-hoon only cared if the house matched his luxurious status. He was satisfied with their current residence and refused Lee Yumi's request. Lee Yumi remembered meeting Ji-won earlier that day. Ji-won was eager to work in the political section of the media. Remembering Ji-won's help, Lee Yumi wanted Choi Ji-hoon to help Ji-won get a position there. Choi Ji-hoon agreed, but wanted something in return. As a trade-off, Lee Yumi was to meet with politicians' wives and build good relationships with them. Although she disliked it, Lee Yumi had no choice but to agree. Despite Choi Ji-hoon's public slogans of being friendly and fair, he was arrogant and domineering in private. He would use a drill late at night at home, ignoring neighbors' complaints. He also assaulted and verbally abused his driver for being a few seconds late. Choi Ji-hoon's scolding reminded Lee Yumi of writer Lee's harsh words to his servants, making her feel uncomfortable, as if she was reliving her past. That day, a student Lee Yumi had tutored came to visit her, bringing some American snacks Lee Yumi once mentioned she liked. She calmly thanked the student but felt conflicted inside. Since Choi Ji-hoon refused to move, Lee Yumi had to avoid Lee Hyun-ju by walking up the stairs every day. This indeed prevented them from meeting. After a long time, Lee Yumi saw Lee Hyun-ju holding an alumni letter as she exited the stairwell. Lee Hyun-ju confronted her, asking what was going on. The envelope bore the name of the school Lee Hyun-ju had attended, and Lee Yumi's name was now her English name, Anna. Under pressure, Lee Yumi confessed the truth and knelt down, promising to resolve the issues if Lee Hyun-ju gave her more time. However, Lee Hyun-ju had no intention of forgiving her. She believed Lee Yumi had stolen her life and excelled beyond her, seeing Lee Yumi's actions as fraudulent and demanding Lee Yumi to pay a huge sum. Lee Hyun-ju demanded 3 billion Korean won from Lee Yumi by the next month, an exaggerated condition. Although Lee Yumi was a corporate wife, she was essentially just a tool for Choi Ji-hoon, with no power or money. But Lee Hyun-ju was only concerned with the outcome. Before leaving, she told Lee Yumi to keep using the stairs and not appear in front of her again. That night, Choi Ji-hoon was drinking with politicians and ended up passed out in his car in the parking lot. The building security called Lee Yumi to take him home. However, Lee Yumi saw another woman in the passenger seat, closed the car door, turned around, and immediately called the police to report someone driving under the influence. Meanwhile, Ji-won, who had just joined the political section of the media, was drinking with her colleagues. As she was the only woman in the department and had gotten the job through connections, she faced teasing and pranks from her male colleagues all night. However, Ji-won did not back down. After the party, watching her colleagues stagger drunk, Ji-won vowed to excel in her work. The next morning, Lee Yumi deliberately asked at the breakfast table why the police were looking for Choi Ji-hoon late at night. Choi Ji-hoon avoided the question, instead talking about setting up a scholarship foundation and nominating Lee Yumi as its chairperson. This meant Lee Yumi would often appear in the media, something she instinctively resisted. But Choi Ji-hoon told her that money and power must be displayed to others, especially during elections. He emphasized that every action they took was meaningful and would be judged by society. Lee Yumi did not respond. The woman who had been with Choi Ji-hoon the previous night surprisingly opened her own home's digital lock. Choi Ji-hoon announced that starting today he would commute with his secretary, who introduced herself as Yumi, when she met Lee Yumi. To gather the 3 billion won Lee Hyun-ju demanded, Lee Yumi began to think of solutions. That day, the female maid asked for leave for the next day, but Choi Ji-hoon was hosting politicians for dinner at home. Lee Yumi found a reason to vent her anger, and uncharacteristically started to get upset, unintentionally echoing the same classist remarks Lee Ryder and Choi Ji-hoon used, implying that the lower classes should not trouble her, and that even the maid's significant personal matters were less important than the mundane activities of the elite. The secretary, standing quietly by, watched as Lee Yumi gradually calmed down and eventually agreed to the maid's leave. The secretary's task was to accompany Lee Yumi to the dinner. During their conversation, Lee Yumi remarked that working close to Choi Ji-hoon must be tough, but the secretary replied with optimistic and polished responses. Lee Yumi coldly noted, "People always lie." well aware of Choi Ji-hoon's character. As they stopped outside the restaurant, the secretary did not hurry Lee Yumi out, but instead went to check if all the guests had arrived. This reminded Lee Yumi of her past, when she used to run errands to check on guests for Lee Hyun-ju, seeing herself in the current secretary. That evening, as politicians dined, Choi Ji-hoon gave a speech. Soon after, the secretary received a call and quietly whispered to Choi Ji-hoon, causing his expression to change. That day, Ji-won met with Kang Jae-ho, who had recently returned from the USA and had kept in touch. However, this time, Kang Jae-ho initiated the contact because he felt he must tell Ji-won something. He showed her a news article on his phone about Choi Ji-hoon and Lee Yumi, asking if this Anna was the girlfriend he knew from the past. Ji-won nodded, thinking Kang Jae-ho was still concerned about their past relationship, but Kang Jae-ho revealed a shocking secret. Lee Yumi was not a college student as she claimed, but had failed the college entrance exam 3 times. He had discovered during their relationship that she was a fraud. Ji-won was shocked and speechless after hearing Kang Jae-ho's words. She questioned him. How is this possible? Despite her disbelief, Ji-won knew Kang Jae-ho must have a basis for his claim. Adhering to her principle of pursuing the truth, Ji-won began investigating Lee Yumi's background. She first called her university to check if Lee Yumi had been a student there. The school did find several people named Lee Yumi, but none had graduated from the aesthetics department. Ji-won also checked the name Anna, but found no record of such a person. Ji-won visited her landlord from her university days and learned even more startling facts. The landlord remembered Lee Yumi well, because she left 2 months' rent unpaid before hastily leaving for the USA, leaving behind many clothes and belongings. The landlord had even visited Lee Yumi's hometown to ask her father for the rent. According to the landlord, Lee Yumi's family lived in a rural town and ran a suit shop, appearing not to be wealthy. Ji-won then visited the art tutoring center where Lee Yumi had previously worked. The head of the center recalled Lee Yumi's excellent tutoring skills, which had helped many students get into prestigious schools. The only odd thing was Lee Yumi's strange English. Ji-won asked to see the personal data and academic certificates Lee Yumi had submitted when she applied for the job. Meanwhile, Lee Yumi was still figuring out how to raise money, feeling completely out of options. One day, in the parking lot, she saw Lee Hyun-ju alone on the phone, heading home. Lee Yumi pressed the gas pedal, intending to make Lee Hyun-ju disappear from this world. However, as she approached Lee Hyun-ju from behind, Lee Yumi lost her courage and was mocked by Lee Hyun-ju. Lee Yumi began meeting with politicians' wives to build closer relationships. These women, tools in their husbands' quests for power, were used to facilitate various deals. Despite the influx of people bringing gifts due to Choi Ji-hoon's rising political career, Lee Yumi disliked these interactions and remained cold, even when one lady brought her 100 million won. That night, back in the parking lot, Lee Yumi encountered Lee Hyun-ju again. She handed over the 100 million won, saying she had done her best. But Lee Hyun-ju scoffed at the amount, throwing it on the ground, and suggested that Lee Yumi ask her husband for money, offering to help if she didn't know how to ask. Despite the threat, Lee Yumi found a glimmer of hope in Lee Hyun-ju's words. She went home and started listing the politicians' wives she needed to meet. If each could contribute money, she might be able to raise the 3 billion won. The next time she met with the politicians' wives, Lee Yumi made an effort to be more amiable, and they were very satisfied with her. Seeing the money coming in, Lee Yumi felt increasingly at ease. Ji-won arrived at Lee Yumi's hometown and immediately entered a snack shop run by a neighbor who had been looking after Lee Yumi's mother for many years. When Ji-won mentioned Lee Yumi, the neighbor was proud, believing that Lee Yumi was still in the USA. Ji-won then went to Lee Yumi's high school to learn about her past there. Lee Yumi was attractive and excelled academically, but craved attention too much. In her senior year of high school, she was caught in a relationship with a young teacher, which devastated her. Forced to transfer, she moved to Seoul. Her teacher recalled that Yumi would often return from Seoul, cry at her house all night, and take the first morning bus back. Raised on praise, Yumi became fragile once she realized her worthlessness. At that time, Ji-won received a call from her company. Her superior instructed her to free up her evening to host Choi Ji-hoon. Ji-won wanted to refuse, but learned that Choi Ji-hoon had recommended her for the job. During their meeting, Choi Ji-hoon gifted her exclusive information on a competitor, hoping Ji-won would appreciate his referral and support him in media affairs. He believed this would benefit both his career and hers. However, Ji-won, who became a journalist to seek the truth, refused to assist anyone in politics for her career advancement. She put down the materials and clearly rejected Choi Ji-hoon, who was not angry but thought she hadn't yet experienced the pain of being suppressed. He suggested she learn from Lee Yumi, who had only advanced by seizing the opportunity to marry him. Ji-won, disgusted by Choi Ji-hoon's arrogance, later received an email from the overseas university on Lee Yumi's job application. They confirmed someone named Anna had indeed graduated there, leaving Ji-won puzzled. Today, Lee Hyun-ju returned to the country with her daughter and husband. Displeased with her husband, she quickly headed to the airport. Lee Hyun-ju, always the center of attention, valued only her daughter and was in the process of divorcing her husband. Upon seeing her daughter, she joyfully left with her, leaving her mother and husband to handle the luggage. Her husband was eager to finalize the divorce to avoid further meetings with Lee Hyun-ju. After her daughter's return, Lee Hyun-ju began buying her various toys and clothes, happily welcoming her to play at her home. Life in Korea was tough for Lee Hyun-ju. She was good at spending money but not making it. After the death of Lee, the mail writer, she nearly spent her entire fortune and secretly mortgaged her property to borrow 3 billion won, which was why she demanded the same amount from Lee Yumi. Choi Ji-hoon was nominated as a candidate for the mayor of Seoul. On stage, Lee Yumi presented flowers to her husband, and they posed for a loving couple's photo. The campaign team shouted Anna's name, but she sat beside Choi Ji-hoon, indifferent. While Choi Ji-hoon and his team celebrated all night, Lee Yumi couldn't stand the atmosphere and went home early. The secretary drove her home, but had to return to the party, matching Choi Ji-hoon's schedule. In the elevator, the secretary sat on the floor, exhausted. At home, Lee Yumi was too tired to wash up and simply lay down on the floor to sleep. The next day, Lee Yumi woke up and continued to meet various ladies, receiving more and more gifts. A brief chat was all it took for her to accept large sums of money. In the evening, Lee Yumi went to the pharmacy to buy digestive tablets and saw a news report about a 30-year-old woman who had lost hope in life and committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning in her car. Lee Yumi passed by the deceased's house on her way home, feeling complicated. If she hadn't fabricated various lies, she might have died herself. Instead of taking the stairs, Lee Yumi pressed the elevator button. Back home, Lee Yumi checked the news about the 30-year-old woman's suicide. The victim was Lee Hyun-ju. She remembered being blackmailed by Lee Hyun-ju, who had warned her to keep taking the stairs and stay away from her before she left. Thus, Lee Yumi concluded that Lee Hyun-ju would not have taken her own life. Later, Choi Ji-hoon returned home and questioned why Lee Yumi had missed such an important event. Lee Yumi said she had classes. After all, she just needed to sit quietly at these events, and her absence was not a big deal. Choi Ji-hoon disapproved of her attitude and questioned her. Lee Yumi felt like she was merely an employee under Choi Ji-hoon. He had used the same words when he fired a driver. Seeing Lee Yumi talk back, Choi Ji-hoon ordered her to quit her teaching job. Clearly, Lee Yumi had no intention of complying. Choi Ji-hoon assigned a secretary, who shared Lee Yumi's name, to monitor her. The next day, the Choi couple attended a scholarship foundation event. Lee Yumi gave a speech on stage, making Choi Ji-hoon very proud. After her speech, Choi Ji-hoon also spoke, sharing his political ideals with fervor and gaining public support. At the end of his speech, he knelt before the citizens to show his political commitment. Besides attending events with Choi Ji-hoon, Lee Yumi had her own life, enjoying her teaching. After one class, she was suddenly informed that her teaching would be temporarily halted due to Choi Ji-hoon's ongoing election campaign. Lee Yumi knew this was Choi Ji-hoon's doing and was forced to sign a leave application as Lee Anna. The female secretary followed Lee Yumi, who instructed her to investigate the address of the fired driver and other employees dismissed by the temperamental Choi Ji-hoon. The secretary did not understand why, but was reminded by Lee Yumi to keep it confidential and not disclose it to Choi Ji-hoon. Lee Yumi met with the driver. During this time, she frequently contacted dismissed employees to uncover Choi Ji-hoon's secrets. However, the driver had signed a confidentiality agreement and could not speak freely. Lee Yumi persuaded the driver, arguing that a hypocritical man like Choi Ji-hoon should not become the mayor of Seoul. On the other side, Ji-won was inspired by a colleague and bought a graduation album from Anna's foreign alma mater on a second-hand website. After flipping through it, she found that the name Anna was associated with a photo of Lee Hyun-ju. She reached out to Anna's classmates who remembered Anna having two names, her Korean name Lee Hyun-ju and her English name Anna. The classmates mentioned that Lee Hyun-ju had lived in Boston until last year when she returned to Korea to finalize her divorce. They also revealed that Lee Hyun-ju had someone else write her thesis. Ji-won then visited the police station to inquire about the details of Lee Hyun-ju's death. The police confirmed that Lee Hyun-ju had committed suicide. She had been in debt due to stock trading, recently divorced, suffered from long-term alcoholism, frequented casinos, and her mother mentioned that she had bipolar disorder. The next day, Lee Yumi participated in an event and joined a volunteer service team, receiving interviews from journalists. After a busy day, she felt too drained to return to her cold home. The female secretary handed over the company's tax documents to Lee Yumi, and they talked in the car. The secretary could never fully grasp her employer's mood. Today, Lee Yumi was particularly irritable and borrowed a cigarette and lighter from the secretary before heading home. The following day, Ji-won returned to the news agency and noticed everyone busy with their work. She learned from a leader that they had received explosive news about Choi Ji-hoon, who had a wife and a child with autism. The leader quickly instructed the team to write up the story. Meanwhile, Choi Ji-hoon received the news and, infuriated, scolded his kneeling subordinates. His political career could be over with his secrets exposed. Suddenly, a subordinate's phone rang with news of negative reports online about Lee Yumi's faked thesis. Choi Ji-hoon immediately summoned Lee Yumi. He had found the person who allegedly wrote the paper. In a few hours, this person would be interviewed to deny the ghostwriting, stating they were study partners with Anna. For safety, Choi Ji-hoon advised Lee Yumi to avoid media appearances. From their conversation, Lee Yumi realized that Choi Ji-hoon had long known her true identity. He no longer hid it, commenting that Lee Hyun-ju was bold to have contacted him directly, showing a sinister smile. Lee Yumi learned a shocking truth and felt very afraid. Choi Ji-hoon gestured for her to keep quiet and ordered a bodyguard to take her home. Lee Yumi went to the underground parking garage but hesitated to go upstairs. It seemed she heard Lee Hyun-ju's voice. She walked towards it. Lee Hyun-ju explained the origin of the name Anna, noting that as a child, she was praised like a princess and called Anastasia. However, after learning that the famous Princess Anna's name was misused after her death, she decided never to use the name Anna again. Lee Yumi felt sad, realizing even the identity she stole was fake. Lee Hyun-ju believed Lee Yumi had caused her death and said that from now on, Lee Yumi would live in hell. After saying this, Lee Hyun-ju walked away. Following the incident with Lee Hyun-ju, Lee Yumi grew increasingly disgusted with her husband. In private, the couple revealed each other's secrets. Lee Yumi brought up Choi Ji-hoon's ex-wife and child. Choi Ji-hoon mentioned Lee Yumi was the daughter of a tailor shop owner. They discussed Lee Hyun-ju. Choi Ji-hoon believed he had removed an obstacle from his path and thought Lee Yumi should be thankful. However, Lee Yumi did not approve of his actions. Angered, Choi Ji-hoon grabbed Lee Yumi's neck and choked her. He released her just as she was about to suffocate. Whispering in her ear, he said he didn't wish for the woman to die, but it had happened, and Lee Yumi was also complicit. Despite the media exposing Choi Ji-hoon's scandal, his approval ratings increased. Major news websites reported on this, and Lee Yumi's photo was published. Following this, Lee Yumi gave an interview. She resumed her acting, no longer caring about rumors regarding her thesis. She did not want the sick child of Choi Ji-hoon's ex-wife to become a topic of public discussion. On the other hand, Choi Ji-hoon's subordinates reported that Lee Yumi had accepted 3 billion won from others. Choi Ji-hoon immediately contacted a psychiatric hospital, claiming Lee Yumi had mental issues and planned to commit her after the election. Meanwhile, Lee Yumi had her own plans. She approached Ji-won, who admitted knowing about Lee Yumi using someone else's identity. Lee Yumi explained her life was tough, and she had always envied Lee Hyun-ju's life. She produced a USB drive containing evidence of her identity theft, Lee Hyun-ju's murder, and evidence that Choi Ji-hoon's ex-wife did not die accidentally. Additionally, it included Choi Ji-hoon manipulating stock prices, embezzlement, tax evasion, and Lee Yumi accepting bribes. Previously, Lee Yumi had created a trending search about Choi Ji-hoon and ghostwriting, which he later managed to quash. Out of desperation, Lee Yumi decided to expose everything herself. Lee Yumi visited her mother in a nursing home, who suffered from Alzheimer's and no longer recognized her. Believing her daughter was in the US, she asked Lee Yumi to write to her. Heartbroken, Lee Yumi asked her female secretary to take care of her mother if something happened to her. As the election results were about to be announced, Lee Yumi received a call from the nursing home that her mother was looking for her because she was dying. Deeply saddened, Lee Yumi watched on TV as Choi Ji-hoon celebrated his victory in becoming the mayor of Seoul. The contrast between the indifferent, grieving Lee Yumi and the jubilant crowd was stark. Right after his election victory, Choi Ji-hoon decided to go to the US to bring back his son. Ji-won, after receiving a message from Lee Yumi, contacted a prosecutor to meet. As Choi Ji-hoon was about to rush to the airport, Lee Yumi stopped him, sharing the news of her mother's critical condition in the nursing home. Choi Ji-hoon joked that her mother should be in the US. Lee Yumi's expression turned cold, but Choi Ji-hoon didn't want her to leave at this critical moment. Without any other option, Lee Yumi boarded the plane to the US with Choi Ji-hoon. On the plane, she received the news of her mother's death and broke down in tears. After arriving in the US, Choi Ji-hoon took Lee Yumi's passport to rent a car and drove her to their son's location. On the way, Lee Yumi received a text that Ji-won's investigation was facing obstacles. Lee Yumi sighed. Choi Ji-hoon suggested she take a break, as she had been acting out of line recently. Lee Yumi realized that Choi Ji-hoon's purpose for coming to the US was not to pick up their child, but to imprison her. Choi Ji-hoon readily admitted it, causing panic in Lee Yumi. She turned to look at him and noticed he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Lee Yumi thought of a plan. Just as Choi Ji-hoon turned to look at her, he missed a deer in the road ahead. Lee Yumi quickly pulled the handbrake. The car spun out of control and hit a roadside pole. Lee Yumi got out of the car, took a moment to rest, and then took their passports from Choi Ji-hoon, who was trapped in the driver's seat. He kept calling for her help, but Lee Yumi pretended not to hear. She walked away to find a mobile signal and received a text from Ji-won. Their plan had failed. Meanwhile, Ji-won, having failed at the prosecutor's office, climbed out of a window to draw attention and escape from her pursuers. Deeply disappointed, Lee Yumi decided that if justice could not prevail, she would take matters into her own hands. She lit a scarf hanging on her bag and approached Choi Ji-hoon. News of Choi Ji-hoon's death was reported soon after, but Lee Yumi vanished. Later, during Choi Ji-hoon's funeral, only his autistic son was seen playing nearby. Years later, Anna pulled a cart full of firewood towards her cabin in Canada, having walked there from the US. Anna removed her heavy clothes, revealing her gaunt face. She remembered what had happened that day, threw her bag and lighter into the car, and walked away without looking back. Thinking about the past, she broke down in tears.